Major Garrett is inside there right now. Major, can you tell us exactly what happened?
I can tell you approximately what happened. It all, as these events sometimes occur, was pretty chaotic. Trump was about two-thirds of his way through his front stage here in the Reno Convention Center. There was a protester right in front of him, center stage, causing a bit of a disturbance. Trump made a reference to him. Then the protester began to move in a way that the Secret Service was not comfortable with. They whisked Trump off stage, taking him right behind the blue curtain in which he was speaking in front of. There was a disturbance around the protester. That protester was whisked away, brought out of the crowd, isolated here at the convention center. Trump did not return to stage for a good long while. We in the traveling press corps were told we had to leave and vacate the building because he was going to depart. Then we were holding. We saw several uniformed police officers with guns drawn, looking a little bit tense. I don't want to over-dramatize that, but they were looking slightly tense. Then it was announced on the loudspeaker Trump would be coming back on stage. An enormous roar erupted from the crowd. Trump, in fact, did return to the stage. We in the traveling press corps got no signal. We just ran back into the convention center to get a glimpse of the GOP nominee at the stage. He finished up his remarks. I would be on camera with you right now, Jamie, if I could, but we are being hustled out of the convention center to the press buses because we are told we are heading to our next campaign stop tonight, which is in Denver, Colorado. In the main, everything is fine. Trump is fine. It was a chaotic and frantic bit of campaign drama for a few moments, but all the systems in place for candidates, for the crowd, and for the press worked as they are supposed to.
Major, right before Donald Trump went back on stage, I was asking your producer if you had seen any tighter security just in the last few days because of some of these threats that we had heard about leading up to the election cycle. You say that you saw some of the SWAT team members and things looking tense. Has that just kind of been the mood the last few days as we're kind of running up to Election Day now, or is it still the same as it has been? I mean, there have been other incidents that have happened at these Trump rallies.
Sure. There's always a larger security presence at Trump rallies. There has been for months and months now because of the disruptions that visited Trump rallies during the primaries. They sort of died down a little bit during the general election, but there is a sense generally, and there were intelligence estimates over the weekend, that there might be some heightened threat in certain parts of the country related to the election. Nobody knows exactly how credible or intense or valid those threats are, but the concern level, I would say, is higher. But it's always worth remembering, Jamie, and it's important to convey this to our audience. I've covered 6 presidential campaigns. There always is the potential for something volatile to happen. And the Secret Service assumes every time there's an event that that possibility exists, and they, in their terminology, posture themselves to provide the best level of security for the protectee, the nominee. And that's what they do, and they do it very well. They do it hour by hour, day by day, and they did so here in Reno tonight.
Major, I want to go ahead and tell people what they're looking at on the screen right now. We did just get some video in moments ago of what appears to be the suspect being led out by a number of police officers, about 6 uniformed police officers and at least 1 Secret Service member. And it looks like he's a fairly young individual. He doesn't appear to have anything on him. He's in a coat. He's being led out. It seems relatively peaceful. From what you saw and heard, I know this all happens very, very quickly. Donald Trump even looking surprised as we're showing some of the video again of him being rushed off the stage. You said moments before he had made reference to this specific protester. Did it just seem like things around this protester got out of hand, or was the protester themselves? Do we think he had a weapon of some kind, or why the reaction?
Okay, I'm not going to go anywhere near the weapon question. I have no idea about that, and I'm not going to speculate. And we would be unwise to speculate about that. So let's just be very careful about our terminology. I don't know what he had. But I do know that those who protect Donald Trump believe the situation was getting out of control sufficiently that they removed him from the stage. Video that people, I guess, now are seeing on CBSN. Again, I'm in the bus. I can't see anything. I'll take your word for the description of the suspect. That happened as I was trying to get a better sense of what was going on with Trump and the center stage. That happened to the left. It's a huge crowd here, several thousand. That suspect was embedded in that. I never got my own eyewitness look at that suspect, his attitude, his deportment, anything. So I'll take your word on describing what you saw on that video feed. All I can tell you is in the speech, Trump said, oh, there's a protester. And he has a kind of a riff he goes through now where he talks about, well, are you being paid? Are you being here to disrupt by the Clinton campaign? And that happens maybe once or twice every rally, on average. Not every single rally, but I would say that's the working average. So it was being discussed by Trump in that vein, like this was no big deal. It's a protester. My crowds deal with it. I deal with it. Secret Service deals with it. And in almost every other instance, it never arises to this sort of tense and dramatic and, for a few moments, frantic situation. Tonight it did. I will tell you this, the crowd around remained peaceful. They were curious. They were certainly alarmed, as was everyone. And they were more than delighted when Trump came back on stage. And it's worth noting that when he did come back on stage, among the first words out of his mouth were, nobody said this would be easy.
Yeah, he said, it cut out just for a second, Major. He said, no one said it was going to be easy for us. We will never, ever be stopped. As we move ahead through the next couple of days, do you think there'll be any differences on the campaign trail? You think maybe they'll have to revisit how he interacts with the crowd a bit?
Well, you can't revisit whether you give a speech or not. That's a pretty basic interaction with the crowd. What you can revisit is how much time you spend on what we call in campaign coverage the rope line, which is where you greet well-wishers, sign autographs, and things like that. I can tell you, Jamie, at this stage of the campaign, there's no time for that. Candidates don't linger anymore for that. They've got to get on to the next event. That's been the pace we've been on with Trump for the last 3 or 4 days. It's a very typical pace this time of campaign season. You don't linger. You've got to get to the next event, especially when you're doing 4 or 5 events a day spread out across this vast country in battleground states. And today is a day for that to be on the ledger for sure. We started in Florida, North Carolina, now we're in Nevada heading to Colorado. That's a lot of mileage. So they're not going to revisit that because they're not doing it anymore. And Trump is, of course, going to give speeches. And his decision, and I'm sure, because I've come to know Donald Trump quite well during this campaign, that was his decision to go back out there. Because the original signal we got was we're all leaving and he's leaving. And I guarantee you, he said, I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving before I say goodbye. I'm not leaving before I come back and let everyone know I'm okay and we're going to carry on. And that is not only a gut-level decision for any political figure, but it's one that I think is consistent with Trump's approach to this campaign and his own sense of self, and importantly, his supporters' sense of him.
It almost seemed in a way, too, he acknowledged what happened, but then he was able to kind of segue into then the Secret Service and how he was going to rebuild the military and defense. He almost wanted to come out and make a couple more points in terms of his policies and what he is thinking leading up into Election Day. So I guess now
he wanted to convey that he wasn't flustered.
Right.
And he wanted to convey that the speech goes on, the message goes on, my communication with you goes on. And this little disruption was precisely that. A little disruption. We're over it now. We're going to move on. Let's get back to base. And that is something that crowds always respond to, but I would say tonight
probably more so. Yeah. In any way, was this cut short at all for you to get? Are you surprised you're on the bus now at 9:26 Eastern time to be heading to Denver, Colorado?
No. Yeah. I mean, when we are usually ushered to the edge of the arena, wherever we are, as Trump is winding up. And his speeches now have become surprisingly predictable. And they have a timing and a sequence and a spacing now that can be read by everyone, like myself and my other traveling reporter colleagues who've heard the speech before. And we know, and the advanced staff of the Trump campaign signals to us, okay, we're getting to the windup. So we were within, I would say, 7 or 8 minutes from that stage of his speech when this all happened. So then there was this massive disruption, all this chaos, the back and forth. Then Trump came back, finished out his speech, and we were trying to get on the air with CBSN. I'm so deeply unhappy that I'm not on camera for you to tell you this story. But when the press
we miss your face too, Garrett.
I've got to move with it.
Yeah, absolutely. You're doing a great job out there. Obviously, this was a very chaotic situation for everyone, including the members of the media who, as you described, were rushed out and are now on a bus on your way to the airport to get to Denver, Colorado for us. So we will let you go. We appreciate the coverage and you calling in. Thank you so much. As we continue to play some of the video from the chaotic situation that happened a little bit earlier in Reno, Nevada, at the convention center there, where Donald Trump was rushed off stage. Everything now okay. This was, again, video from earlier. And as we just talked to Major Garrett, Donald Trump had come back out, said he was all right, and they are now on to their next campaign stop for Colorado.